Down this alleyway. They can't be far behind us. Quick, get into this sack. They won't find us in here. All we need to do is wait them out.
Hey, you two. Get out of those sacks.
Shh! Keep still.
Listen, we saw you getting into them. I can literally see the dumb-looking one's feet sticking out.
Nothing to see here. We're just, fermented crab?
Enough. We'll carry them. Grab the sacks.
I think we've been rumbled.
Hello, and welcome back. We're going to talk about E2 2019, the LARP proper.
Yeah, so we did indeed go LARPing once more.
Oh, so good.
It was fantastic. I think this event, and this is going to be an interesting one to talk about, but this event particularly, and I know I sort of say this every time almost, but is a particularly special one, and one that I think really developed me and my love with LARP a whole other step further. I had whole new experiences that I've never done at LARP before. The older stuff seemed new to me. There was a whole bunch of this that was like really interesting on so many levels. I think we just pushed ourselves a bit more and had the courage to do a few things that maybe we hadn't done before.
Speaking about courage and pushing ourselves forward, the weather.
The weather was so
this is
an ongoing thing.
For anyone
really.
that's like familiar with Empire LARP will be like, oh my god, it's talking about the fucking weather, but it was a huge part of it.
So the week before had actually been quite nice, but it had
the week before
that was the
previous week
and that would have been quite nice, but then it sort of started turning to this kind of rain, and it
rained heavy for like 5 or 6 days, right?
And then it broke, and then it started doing sort of intermittent spells. So on the way there we were originally going to go up on the Thursday, me and Lloyd. We were going to
Bung
camp
was
up
as well,
there. Maybe Bung, and you were potentially going to join us.
Potentially,
but then you were,
I'd worked,
but basically the weather was such where we kind of felt that going up there and setting
Thursday
everything
just sounds like where the party is, though.
It sounds amazing. I think I really want to do it, and if we can do it next time, we should do it. It's just always a challenge logistically. When you're working, it's a challenge. It's difficult to justify that many days off. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but I think, like, as an experience, I've heard a lot of good things.
The weather, I think, was a shrewd call. Though.
And so we're very fortunate that you live only a little bit away from where the event is, so we have a base camp we kind of decamp at, and you and Susanna are really good and put us up, and it makes the whole experience so much easier. So, but then this did mean, of course, though, that the worry was how the ground would hold up.
Yeah, the rain wasn't too bad at the start. It was off and on, but it was like the damage had already been done water-wise. Now, there have been pictures on Facebook about like people like digging out trenches and stuff like this.
PD were fantastic.
They were so good.
Like, they actually had sort of worked out where to put sort of water traps and things like that, and sort of ways of streaming water out of areas.
Streams of water coming off the campsite.
And they had like areas that they let sort of flood to a certain degree. It was very, very good. Like, super duper respect to all of those people.
And also like, there is no higher praise. They were so good. Weirdly, we talked about this slightly earlier before the podcast, but there was like weird misinformation going out on social media about certain aspects of what the weather had done to stuff. And I know that PD, they did a post recently talking about that, and it's just like,
it's the nature of the beast.
I always find I haven't seen anything where PD's really dropped the ball on anything. They're always so on it. But they're dealing with astronomical like problems,
and it's tough, like with social media. I mean, just something gets posted and everybody's constantly got their eyes on the weather. Everybody's doing it. So it's a difficult situation, and everyone knows that ultimately you want to be there, and it's amazing.
As with anything, it didn't really. Well, it does. The awning now and the fire basically mean that you can have comfort even when the weather's shit. You can dry off really easily.
So I think the biggest thing for me is setting up and taking down, and it's especially when the weather isn't great. But just normally, actually, it's a big job, and if you're putting up, like, it's not. In some ways, there's groups who do like huge amounts of work, and their camps are amazing. But like for me, I find just putting up the stuff in our camp quite a lot. So, putting up the 2 tents, putting up the awning, bringing all the boxes.
Yeah, we should, and also we're always late, so we should probably go together, or at least.
Yeah, I think having someone extra help is really useful. I mean, but look, everybody's got things on, so it's completely understandable.
Yeah. Parking where I parked because of the weather, you can see the grass when we rolled up was it wasn't too bad, but you could see it being really bad really fast.
So when me and Lloyd got there, we got there early enough whereby the weather was still quite good. We could park our cars relatively close. We've got the majority of the stuff that we need to unload anyway, so that was quite fortunate. And the ground was okay, so we actually managed to set up okay. It was tiring. I think that was the main thing. I think I was just tired when I finished setting it all up, just because there was a lot of work. But the camp, one thing I had done, I'd got this kind of essentially like a garden box, and like a large garden box for storing things in. I brought that along as like a 2-person bench and just put some sort of throws over it, so we could have that under the awning, and we could also do things like store wood inside it. And the other thing I got, which I was really pleased with, was the sort of matting for my.
Oh my god, your tent's ridiculous now.
Well, I mean, it's our tent, obviously, but you moved into Lloyd's tent, so me and Bungle this event were sleeping in mine and Dave's tent, and Dave had moved in with Lloyd and Good Dave, who were both in Lloyd's just amazing 5-meter bell tent. If you can get a bell tent and you can afford that extra meter from a 4 to a 5, it really makes a big difference. You can comfortably walk around inside a 5-meter bell tent. That's nice.
Still, also farts are fairly bad.
I was going to go there.
I'm just saying, they're still very, very bad.
But yeah, so anyway, when we set up the tents and the awning and stuff, it was fantastic. And we'd also bought a new fire pit. So we set that up. And that must made for a really cool environment, I think, to be in.
Oh, I saw Matt P wandering around looking very concerned. Oh,
well, I think
he had a long weekend, dude.
With all of the weather, it's a lot, right? Organising everybody.
They care so much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? About everyone having a good time.
I think that's the thing. I mean, all of those people in their jobs. I mean, I think a lot of them volunteers. And all of their hard work basically makes all of my fun and pleasure possible, right? The fact that they do that and they put themselves into it that much. I mean, just full on respect. They're just fantastic what they do. Literally some of the best days in my year. I've been giving, thanks to them.
Every time I've gone to an event, I've given them a beer or a cider or something I've driven through.
It's really nice.
And the guy this year, this event, I was just like, that guy deserved it so much. He was, and he was so touched by it as a gesture. It was like, no, but thank you, sir. Yeah. You're the real.
They are literally the heroes.
The real heroes.
Yeah, they're so
working
good.
Their balls off in their terrible conditions, trying to deal with stuff.
The crazy thing, if I did that, I'd expect to get paid. I don't. I'm not
going for 80, 70, 80 quid, whatever it is now, is like a bargain compared to just having to work so hard. My back just got sore watching people busting their balls this weekend.
I know,
but to be fair, here's one thing that I noticed. I helped move a couple of cars. I'm playing it up like I don't care, but you help, right? But the whenever someone got stuck, there were people on that shit really fast. From what I saw, anyway.
I mean,
when people were passing, it must be harder if you're in an isolated area, maybe. But
no, I think that loads of people
down
were really
our
helpful.
section, everyone was up for helping.
Yeah, people. We helped push a car, and then they helped me push my car. It was fantastic.
I think the problem is that how many times do people really drive in those really terrible conditions?
Yeah.
It's not very often, right?
I've got a little town sort of city car,
there
right?
There are a lot of burnt out clutches, man.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I actually was in a spot where I could literally just kind of pull out. Pretty much just had to sort of turn right and get sort of pushed a little way. So it was actually, for me and my car, I was very fortunate.
Yeah,
but
we'll get to my great escape at the end. But right, so you sold your first book.
Yeah, so that was really good fun. So I'd made these books before the event, which are basically books on alchemy and herbology and things like that I had made to sell. I made 14 of them, well 15 actually. That one I kept for myself. But 14 of them I was going to sell, and I'd been in touch with various people, and something I really wanted to try and achieve this event was to try and sell one copy of the book to someone from each nation. And that just is to give myself a bit of game, basically, just an excuse to walk around and RP with people. And I know that's maybe not the most exciting sort of imaginative kind of game. But for me, that's actually a step, because I don't think I've done that well in trying to sort of push forward RP until this event, where I think I tried to step it up a bit, and that was really good fun.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so as part of this, I've been in contact with various people from different nations, and because I knew the weather was going to be an issue in regards to mobility and getting around everywhere, some people had offered to pick up their book before time in or something like that. And although that sort of part, I was like, "Oh, am I missing out on an RP experience?"
I sold 2 fingerless gloves before time in.
Yeah, and I think it's just like, it was nice to do that.
It was people that I've spoken to on the Book of Faces.
Yeah, exactly. So these 2 lovely people from Brass Coast came round and purchased my first book, and it was so exciting. Like, so they came along and asked for me just before time in. I was able to sell them this book, and it was all OC, but it really made me excited, because I worked so hard on these books, and then for people to buy them for a fair bit of coin, and this is IC coin I was selling them for, and to like them was just a huge buzz. Like, Dude, I was really pleased with it.
You always sell yourself short on what you do, and I think it's like, dude, that they're awesome. They're really cool.
No, I'm very proud of them, but it's like just the fact that other people like them is actually really cool, and like that I was able to sell them, and it was just a great experience. But then, of course, the other thing that we had was you getting your shield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is like, so this is a shield that you'd ordered after last event.
Yeah.
And made by Robert.
Yep, my own custom personal shield.
And it was beautiful.
Getting it was a religious experience. I loved it. Dude, getting my hands on it, I was so happy with it.
Because you'd only seen images and photos up until this point.
But I already knew what it looked like. I knew it intimately before I even got my hands on it. And it's just, I love it. I absolutely think it's brilliant.
It is fantastic.
It's got the old Ashbourne logo right on the front of it. It's exactly what I wanted, and it's perfect. But there is a curse that goes with new kit. And that is the threat of dying because you bought new kit.
Yeah.
Which everyone, as soon as you get a new shield,
you have the fear.
To you. Everyone keeps telling you. By the way, new kit.
New kit curse.
New kit curse, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh,
and it's
nice piece of custom kit you got there.
It'd be a shame if you were to die.
So if anything happened to you. So that's all I got at the start of the event, which was an absolute fucking treat, Should we just jump into time in?
Yeah, I think that then it is time in. Yeah.
Yeah, so time in. I made a mental note to be like, this is what it feels like to be. Because I remember like the first episode, the first one we did, where we talked about those moments building up to time in.
Yes.
We were already semi-RPing before time in.
Yeah.
And it was, I made a mental note of it because everyone was just doing their thing. We started speaking a little bit, and it's not like we instantly just start like LARPing at each other, right? It's subtle. Like someone will say, like even midway through a sentence, someone can be talking about something that we should be doing at the event, and then just start talking IC mid-sentence because it's like
you're revving the engine of the RPM meter,
and everyone's up for it, right?
Yeah.
So we've got you, me, Lloyd, Good Dave.
Well, this is the interesting thing because we're split into 2 tents, of course. Yeah. It's Ifan, who's you, Lindir, who's Lloyd, and Fire, who's Good Dave, all in your tent, and I'm Talas in my tent with Keys, who's played by Bungle, in our tent, and having all of us kind of come together under the awning from these 2 tents. So like me and Bungle, before we were getting ready for time in, as you're saying, we started having conversations.
With 1 or 2 people, it might seem a bit ridiculous. It did at times when we first started doing it. When there's fucking 5 or 6 of you doing it, it's so much easier. When everyone's up for it, it's just like, right, we're gonna really do this.
I think there's that whole thing, and I think this is one of the reasons that LARP actually succeeds so much. Is there's that kind of, if you were just talking with a funny voice about something fantastical on your own, people would think you were crazy. But if you do it with 2 people, and if you do it with more people, and then there's sort of the social construct of doing it collectively as a massive group of people, it just makes it easier and easier each time.
It's like rallying about it, though.
Yeah.
Like, you're just saying, like,
you just feed off the energy of the people around you.
So we talked about this before, about doing like culty stuff.
Yeah.
To try and like culty techniques I'm talking about here of trying to get like group identity and group kind of thing.
It's just making like rituals and having things that our striding has that are in some way unique and traditional for our striding.
And to give you something to RP off with those traditions, right?
So one of the things that the nation has is to have a standing. But we decided that as the Ashbourne, we would have a sort of a mini striding standing ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we have this sort of standing, which is, and we talked about this is in the interesting part about it, we talked about this slightly OC before, like the things that we wanted to bring up loosely. And
it's very different when you do it live though, right?
And then, because we decided that one thing we wanted to do is propose these two jumping off points in the Ashbourne story that's going on. One would essentially be walking around Anvil selling books with me, and maybe talking to some other people. And yours would be that you had this kind of semi-clandestine thing going on, which we can't unfortunately go into too much.
Yeah.
But it offered basically a different type of opportunity for people to engage a story with you.
Yeah, and also like the way that our striding works is Ian is like the civic or the
the political leader,
and I am the war leader, right?
Yeah.
So that but like each chief effectively can advise the other one, and there's no vetoing, so you just kind of have to advise. But if that's under that remit, then that's
that
their
person's decision,
decision, right?
And it's kind of interesting.
I
there
really
are
liked
areas
it.
of crossover that
and
we were discussing as we were going.
We really started to do it this time.
Yeah.
Right? Like there were conflicts in what we were talking about. They were very subtle and good, but whenever they came into question, they were just really nice and like respectful.
So I was going to get onto this later, and this is something that I don't think Ifan knows I see. But after the standing, so we basically, and we'll get back to standing in a second, but I think it's an interesting thing to get to. So after the standing, I spoke to the other members of the striding and said that I just wanted them to go with you, those of them that went with you, and make sure that rash decisions weren't made.
Jesus.
And
you son of a
I told
bitch.
I told them that I was happy for them to tell you that I told them that.
You son of a bitch.
And that was, but I thought it was interesting that Tallis kind of oversteps his mark there.
You opened the door into doubt into their minds, man. We can't have that shit.
I know, but that was kind of, it was like me as like if this was a thing that was actually happening OC and this was you going off doing something, I would not undermine you like that. But I see Tallis would undermine Ifan in that way if he felt that the need was great enough.
Because Tallis just needs to,
He cannot stop on his agenda. He can't stop. He wants to, but he can't.
God, he's just with the best intentions come to some of the worst things.
So yeah, that was cool, and we make it, and like to us, in reality, these aren't massive role playing points, by the way, but to us, I think they're big.
I like the way that our structure works is that there can always be
conflict,
a certain level of conflict. I think the joy in it is trying to keep conflict but keep things together, right? Like above all, our characters are like, it goes like what, striding, nation, empire, right? Like in that order, right? So whatever benefits the striding, but always almost always they're the same.
And it's interesting because the striding is in a way so much about self-sacrifice that the needs of the striding are innately embedded in the needs of the nation.
But how those belief structures work in the wider world of empire is really interesting because that's where the conflict comes into, right? How do we deal with
this
X covert, is this a threat to the Ashbourne as a whole? Would this be a mistake? Are we gonna be weaker after this than we were before?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think the sort of the leadership structure that we have, I think one of the strengths of it is that we're able to discuss it, I see, as we go along, where our characters are still working out exactly how this kind of trust system of leadership works. Right? Because it's a lot of, and bear in mind, each of us take counsel from everybody beneath,
But dude, there's also the aspect of like I'm new to this, right? Like as OC, I'm new to the idea of this whole situation. So there's a whole, like as we're doing it, going straight into a leadership role is like one of those things where you go and like, I don't know whether that was the right decision. In fact, we should talk about that now, right? We're talking about the entwined paths or whatever.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting thing. We've obviously, over the course of going to several events, we've met several people from different stridings, different steadings within the VAR. And they approached us at the previous event and suggested the idea of us banding together as a group of stridings and steadings under this title of the Entwined Paths. Really kind of nice idea. And it just kind of it increases your sort of circle of influence of people to role play with.
It creates like, especially with like newer stridings or even steadings or older.
Yeah.
What it means is that like the power structures in Empire are very like vertical, right?
Yeah.
There are people that have been playing the game for years who a throne is nothing to.
Yeah.
There are people who have just started the game who are penniless. There's people that hustle from day one and can maybe get a bunch of coin together. But
yeah.
I don't know. There are big money players running around, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily always a show of length of time playing. Although I think it would be foolish to say there wasn't a correlation between the two.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, right?
Yeah,
So.
I mean, there's certain, as you say, there's some players who really hustle and manage to get stuff together, and they pursue the financial game and make the right sort of moves.
But this also works within like we were talking about before with the idea of getting to know people, having like social currency when you're there.
Yeah.
Right. Like joining of smaller groups into larger groups is an immediate.
Yeah.
And it's
a magnification of power.
But it's also interesting to see how the Entwined Paths is working right now, because we don't really know each other that well.
No, not really.
Right? So it's a group of different stridings that are all coming together, and we're going to try and work together. But there's a kind of understanding, right? Everyone kind of check each other's faces out, look after these guys in battle. If you trade with these guys, do them a favour.
I think one thing we really wanted to try and do this event was to actually have a proper full meeting between all the Entwined Path members. Mm-hmm. But I think the weather kind of put the kibosh on that, to be honest.
There's a few other factors as well that kind of like just.
But it's a tricky thing to try and do.
I'm a big fan of this as a concept.
Yeah.
And the immediate kind of like RP, I think it's like there's certain things where when you have things on your to-do list, right? Like have a meeting about this, talk about this, make a deal with this person, have this stuff, or when you're approached by that stuff, it adds like a layer over the entire thing where you have something to occupy your mind within the RP, right? So you're constantly thinking about that RP thing that you have to do, which is a really nice anchor to stay, like at least, I mean, making it sound like we're absolutely smashing it. We smashed it for us.
Yes, and I think that's a really important thing. Like a lot of the RP we did would be like a new person starting first day could outstrip the RP we did. And super quick.
If they were
gaming, then definitely. But so for us, I think we've been quite tentative about this move into sort of wider RP, and I think this is the first time that we really pushed it for us. And I think for us, it's a big deal, And I found it really rewarding.
Right, so you backstabbed me a little bit.
Well, I wouldn't say backstabbed. I maybe just kind of, tried to make sure that had an influence.
You tried to Ian me, did you?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was.
Was that fair? Is it?
No, it was. Yeah.
Fair assessment.
Yeah, I guess that's how I'd probably put it too.
Right, and we had the national standing.
Yeah.
Which is where Navarre do a standing, which is always worth going to go and have a look at.
Yeah, and this is really cool. So that I'm sure other nations have similar things, but this is basically a really good opportunity for, and this is all delivered by players. Bear in mind, to essentially deliver the sort of, if you like, the news shot of what is happening in Empire and the possibilities that are available to people who are there. It's an opportunity to sort of talk about, obviously, what's happened in the Winds of War and the Winds of Fortune, which are both these kind of things that happen between events that PD publish, that basically are, this is what happened in various battles before the event, this is what happened in various...
I just want to do another shout out to the Orc Planet, because Matt, who reads out the Winds of War, love your work, buddy. Just
he does it so well.
I love it. There's something I don't know, I just love it.
I think especially for us, actually, like both being dyslexic and finding sometimes the fairly intimidating amount of text content that you expected to sort of go through, is a bit of a challenge. So having someone actually read the Winds of War,
it makes me think of like
fantastic
audiobook of The Hobbit. That's how I feel when I listen to him doing the Winds of War.
It's made us think about
mainly
some things
when I run a bath. That's when I like to do it. I run a bath, Ian. I get some nice bubble bath in there. If it's of an evening, I'll light some candles and I'll put my phone next to the bathtub and I'll soak listening to Matt's dulcet tones.
That's an image.
That's just full disclosure. I thought about saying it, so I said it, and now it's out there. Yeah. So
that's fantastic. But no, so
that's fantastic. It is fantastic, Ian.
But so the national standing is a really good opportunity to basically push forward these bits of information, and offer people the chance to jump off on those various bits.
It's a really good thing to get people up to date on what's going on, right? And people to also give people opportunities as well for our
so there's a lot of people who are really, important people within the nation who stand up and offer kind of essentially what, if you think about it, must be quite a lot of their game to put together groups and organise things.
Dude, it's a huge amount of their game. This is one thing I've realised, like this event as well, because of things that happen, but the command structure when you first go to Empire seems like this is how things are and this is how they've always been.
Yeah,
those people earned their places in that nation, right?
Yeah,
like
and that is the really important
and they
thing.
give up so much of their time, IC and OC, right? To that, right. The lady that does the songs and stories is songs and stories. Even was that created in game?
I think it must be, right? I'd be really interested to know what the history of it is. But I might go to the library actually and read about that. That would be
a really fun episode, actually.
Like Songs and Stories is really special.
But it's one example of how many people within that empire make that empire function. That nation function. And it's like there's a few people who you could tell have been giving a lot for a long time.
Yeah.
Right,
and as you say, they earn everything they get. And it's to those players. I think we often focus on the new players, and I think rightly so.
Also, we take for granted. We just take it for granted, going that all these people are putting so much time and effort into.
It's the real, the older, more experienced players who've been giving it hard for longer and have, have really been going for it.
Yeah,
I think those people. I think those people who really kind of put the effort in for a long period of time, I think like they are fantastic, and full respect to them. And as you say, like you as a new player, you feed off them, and that they are the thing that really make Empire in a way. And then it's you naturally just infusing the new blood who are coming in.
Isn't it interesting to think about all the different nations, like all 9 of them?
10.
It's 10 now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 10.
Oh, is it? Yeah, you sure.
I'll count them up mentally, but yeah, you go on.
Okay,
yeah, but all those nations,
all the nations have similar groups, right? So each of those nations probably has like this core group or subgroups within that who are actually creating that nation and making it function within the game. I don't know why this whole thing really brought it home to me. This whole season. Because imagine if like a few people just went, no, I don't want to do that anymore, which is fine, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like the pressure that must be on some people. They have to love it, right? It must get to the points and times where people are like, fuck this.
Yeah, well, I guess just so many people are so energized to be there. And I mean, if you think about like each time we go, just the energy and the excitement before each event. I mean, like you'd think it would lessen, but in some ways it increases because it's like each time you know how awesome it was last time, and you just want to get another, 2.5 or 2 days of it.
After the standing, they had military training. And it was cool going out there and seeing them doing some basic drills with things.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of obviously we've been to a fair few sort of battles and skirmishes. Not in any way trying to say like we're some elite fighting force, but
no, Jesus.
But we have like experience and stuff. But it was nice to go along to national training.
I got involved.
Yeah.
I was like, can I help out?
Yeah.
I figure it's. I wanted to do it OC, but IC it makes sense as well. Like, so I got partnered up with this lady who was I don't know. I hadn't spoken to her. I don't know who she is, but I'm going to tell the story anyway.
Yeah.
But she kind of looked like, oh man, like she was excited about the whole thing, but kind of a little scared about the whole thing. I was like, right, so we're just doing these battle drills and trying to teach each other how to dodge like someone with a sword, and then trying to like fight. And then I was doing all these drills. They were drills that I felt they were kind of like, they were okay as to get your hand on a blade and swipe around for a bit, but they weren't, it's basic. But afterwards, at the end of it, I was just like, listen, right, so keep your mind on your hit points. If you get too low, just head to the back of the line. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just gave her like a few bits of advice, like really bam, 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 like really fast, right?
Yeah.
But there was like, it was cool because she took it on board and it was fun, right?
And I think the thing is, like, when you're trying to express something to somebody, you kind of deliver it in the best kind of RP way you can, and they kind of RP it back to you as well, that they're taking it. And it's like, that's a really interesting part of those sort of role-playing moments, is when you're IC explaining OC things, or trying to help people understand certain OC things,
So it was cool seeing like the fear mixed in with the excitement, mixed in with the kind of like just the can do kind of like when you first that good attitude to take into.
I think like a lot of this is also like the new crop of players are fantastic.
But by the way, there is always a new crop of players.
Yeah,
this is one thing that's interesting, right? I was thinking about this. What's the retention rate?
Probably pretty high.
How many people? But there always seems to be new people every time and large amounts of them. But I don't think the numbers change that much.
I think like the other thing is you can take for granted the fact that we this year, for example, are going to every event.
Yeah, we are, to be fair, we're really lucky to have an
opportunity where we can do that.
Yeah,
I mean, like it's just being able to take the holiday off on all those days.
Yeah, in fact, the Torn Asunder guys, they've been in different varying numbers. So yeah, I get that.
It's a huge challenge. So yeah, I think like I mean, we're very very fortunate to be going to all four of them this year. But yeah, I mean, it's
right. After that, I went and bought some mana.
Yeah,
off a friendly trader who was our neighbour.
Yeah,
and now we're still on polite terms. Yeah. And he did me an absolute deal.
Yeah, I think it was way better rates than.
I don't think we should talk about. Always try and avoid talking about actual fixed sums, but it was an extremely decent deal, and it was like one fellow Navarre to another. I think it was a delight. You know what I mean?
It was fantastic.
This is the other thing, right? There's like, okay, so the whole like tribal thing, how you kind of identify with your own and help each other out. There is this weird like you help out your neighbor, right? So. Right. Us as a striding, our resources are virtually interchangeable, right, to a certain level. The entwined paths or whatever, as our group, right, our banner, they will be like, we'll help each other out. Nation helps each other out. And people of the Empire as a whole will help each other out. But they do all these different like ring games of like people like doing good deals for certain people and not other people. Yeah. Luckily, I was on the really good side of this, so it was like.
And I think that's part of the fun, though, right? Like, is like.
Yeah. To buy, the reason why I bought mana was because I wanted to boost my military unit.
Yes.
Right. So basically, there's is it Brachiliand?
Yeah.
There's always still shenanigans going on that. Basically, Ifan is extremely anti the Valorn. Yeah. Right. The miasma producing plant zombies who are they're an unstoppable evil and we should stamp them out immediately. Yeah. No, there's no conversation about it.
I think this was another really interesting thing and something we had discussed at our sort of national standing, that we as a striding, like the focus.
Our striding,
Sorry, at the striding standing. One thing we brought up was how we as a striding were going to focus the Valorn heavily as our main sort of issue.
What are you? Because basically we talked about how we'd lost 2 people before at the previous event.
Yeah.
What are you doing to stop the Valorn this Anvil?
Yeah, and that's like kind of like the question we want to be kind of walking around asking.
Yeah, like at all times. If you get to Sunday and you ask yourself, what did you do against the Valorn, right, to push them back to where they were, to where they shouldn't exist, And that was kind of like where our striding's at. And I liked it because it's on brief with Navarre, but you feel it though, right?
Yeah,
like when we're all talking about it and we're talking about like losses and like RPing that stuff, you're like, I want to bring it.
One thing that really happened to me was between events. So last event we took the field with some Dornish soldiers, and they were assisting us on a skirmish to Broceliande, and they obviously were coming to protect these healers. They'd just been sort of, I think, hired for the job or just offered themselves for the job. And they kind of asked me, what can we expect to find in there? And this is when we're going to a Verloren-filled place. I just kind of, in fairly bad sort of pigeon RP, explained what they'll find on the other side. But afterwards I thought, I really wish I'd done that better. And I really wish what I'd done is sort of say what is beyond there is like the great purpose you've been looking for. You know what I mean? And like, that's what I really kind of want Tallis to sort of become, is someone who just is trying to, like, convince people. He wants people to want to fight the Verloren. Yeah. And focus them down, so the ancient foe can be defeated.
Well, we did this a few times, even when we went out, even when we're going out and just getting pissed.
Yeah.
When we're RPing with people, always got to slip in the Verloren somewhere in the conversation about like, this is the most important thing to the Empire. Yeah. And like the whole, we talk about like word of mouth and all that stuff, right? Most players, me anyway, if I had a bag full of ideas that I'm always thinking about at LARP, there's like 4 or 5 in there and they're rattling around. There isn't a full bag. If someone comes over and interacts with me and it's good RP and I'm like interested in the conversation, that's a couple more things I'm thinking about, right? Yeah. That's something. So like as a striding, as a Navarre, as a Navarian, speaking as a Navarre, the Verloren need to be stopped.
Yeah. No, and I think like having that as a shift in our focus, I think really was interesting.
But no, it wasn't a shift in focus. It was a focus.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't even like we're changing from something else. It's like, now we have a purpose. And that's to drive the Verloren into the fucking ashes.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
They must be stopped at all costs.
At all costs, everyone.
At all costs. At least Highguard get it. You know what I'm saying? At least they get it.
Oh, yeah. I think that was one of the really interesting things, actually. Just there felt like there was a growing unity between certain nations and the Navarre. And I felt it.
I had interactions this weekend with Brass Coasters. Yeah. And as Ifan, I was like, I fought with you in Broceliande. Yeah. And your nation fought bravely.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, no fucking around. Like, I have respect for Brass Coasters now because they go in no armour. They fight them in equal terms. They're insane.
Yeah. And they're super badass.
I love them.
Massive shout out for Brass Coast.
Oh, yeah. And also, loads of stuff to do with the Brass Coast this time, actually.
That was great.
Right, so we did, and time paths meeting. So we had a few internal, like, joining this mega group. They asked us about things that were on the ballot, about what we should vote on.
Yeah, so there were sort of 2 interesting ones, I think. The first one was that they want to create a banner, which is like an actual a mechanical thing, if you like, in the game that you can create, which basically allows things like rituals to be essentially cast on everybody who is joined to that banner. So it's like, it basically sort of acts like an amplifier of sorts. That's the very poor rules explanation of what they do.
But this is but we chose not to join it.
Yeah,
well, at least me as Ifan advised not to do it, right? And we basically had a bit of a powwow about it, right?
Well, we also first of all we had a discussion about whose place it was to make the decision.
Yeah.
And again, this was a really interesting thing where we sort of said, also, is this a matter
throughout
of...
all of this, while me and Ian are talking, there are a bunch of other people, there's 3 other people there who are watching me and Ian basically dictatorily talking out what the Ashbourne are going to do, right, as leaders, which is an interesting point of RP, which is like...
Is this a diplomatic matter?
Why should I give a fuck about what Dave's saying? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's in IC, it's an interesting... anyway,
Yeah. And it is interesting. So then we basically expressed... And essentially this is a loss for if you were to think of it in purely mechanical terms, it would be much more beneficial for us to join the banner. Yeah. We would get all the benefits of it.
On the mechanics, it's a much better idea to join.
Yeah. But just in terms of RRP and where we are, I think, the Ashbourne aren't ready for that yet. And I think it was super cool because as well, everybody was really down with that as a decision. Because obviously mechanically it is better if we're all part of this kind of joint conglomerate of stridings and steadings. But I think just having that as an element of RP actually is winning the game in that sense,
There's Lloyd talked about this a lot, where he was talking about like metaing the game.
Yeah.
Right?
And this
And
is
but it got
interesting
me.
thing, yeah.
It got me thinking about the whole like to win the game, right? To break a mechanic within it, right?
Yeah.
Actually, this is something that's going to come up a lot, even in the fighting, to do with sticking to the rules, right? Like,
there's lots of things.
There's a lot of stuff to do with how do you want to play the game,
Yeah.
right? Like, I would say, like, in all these things, and how to look at the game and how to play the game, it isn't the end.
Yeah.
It's the journey getting to that point.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. That's where the benefit is. But also it's on the understanding that everybody's ultimate expression of that is going to be different.
Yeah.
You know, you'll want a certain amount of reward. You'll want a certain amount of risk. And how you choose to go about that is kind of up to
in
you.
fact, we should not talk about this now because there's a whole bunch I want to talk about this on, but it needs context to actually really work. So let's move on from that right now. But yeah, good. Right, so generally being in the entwined parts was really interesting, talking about like military leaders.
Yeah, so that was the other really interesting thing. We wanted to try and get some kind of military leader that would essentially act ultimately as the commander of all of the military forces of the entwined paths.
Mm-hmm.
And bear in mind, as I say, we don't know each other all that well.
Not
Not
even to recognise, right?
Yeah. So we thought maybe a good thing to do was not to make a decision there, but actually, let people go to a skirmish, try and catch each other's faces, and just see how each other operate.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about that we all walked out in block, but just to see like how we potentially operated in the battle, and then we would see maybe what we thought. One thing we did was, of course, we put you forward as a potential candidate.
Yeah.
For someone to watch and assess.
I think it was
and
more
make a
like
vote on.
I think it's like a proper UN type thing, right? Where everyone's trying to find each other out, but like had a really nice support immediately from most of like the people I was speaking to about electing me as like the military leader. But all this comes at like you start opening up to this other person wants it, this other person might be good at it, and you start getting to this point where you're like, because of these interactions, you have to RP them.
Yeah.
Right? There's no...
You have to earn it, right?
You have to be there and be like, well, this is really the game I'm going to start playing. There seems to be this next level of involvement where you're like, no, this is the game I'll start to play now once all these things are enacted, right?
Yeah.
It's a very different thing from like our first maybe couple where we were more like tourists, just looking at everything. Now you start to really build in roots and of your character.
And you decide what you want your character to be, and you make certain decisions. Like he is the type of person who pursues a leadership role militarily, or he is the type of person who, wants to go and sell books to various different nations. You make those decisions.
So one of the things that's jarring about being Ifan and trying to sell stuff is this something that Ifan would do, right? I
think so though, because you've set yourself up as he goes very serious.
Yeah.
But most of the time he's jovial.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That is true. Actually, like it's
like he's kind of got there's like trigger words. This is Talis' experience around Ifan. There's trigger words that when you say them, the mild-mannered, humoristic Ifan drops away.
Yeah.
And a different animal comes out.
Oh, I like that a lot. That's very true.
And
you try and talk to me before I go into battle, and what are you going to get?
Yeah.
You're going to get nothing apart from just killing the enemy.
Yeah.
That's all I'm talking about.
But it's also like, if you mention the Forlorn, then the conversation tone shifts.
Or a goddamn briary or a briar.
Yeah, and I think that's been always an interesting thing, is the fact that your character
My hatred of briars has been fantastic.
Yeah.
I've never had to be like flare up at someone and do like a hate crime in the middle of the street, but it's always something that I'm aware of. Like I love turning to people, like when we're listening to someone who's a really good orator, right? And he's really explaining something really, really well, and he's a briar, and I'll just turn to someone next to me and be like, fucking briars.
Yeah.
And it'll be like the guy's really compelling speech and everything he's doing really well and everything's like he completely agree with everyone, but I'm like, ugh, fuck that guy, because I'm prejudiced.
And then the crazy thing is, you get on the other side of it to be, because he obviously only does this kind of around. I mean, I guess you do it generally, but it's always like a fairly like quiet thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you get to RP out that thing of being like around that awkward family member.
But you get to have, but it's
you
also
know what I mean?
like, like the, like if there's a briar nearby, It's the shown MacGuffin or whatever, you know. It's like everyone out of you guys know if we interact with a Briar, I'm simmering with fucking rage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm just and if any excuse, give me any excuse, I'll kill him right now.
And I think though there's been a sort of, as well as you've returned to the Empire, I think like it's felt as anyway that there has been a slight mellowing of that.
Ifans like from his tragic backstory, having lost his wife to a Briar, and like sacrificing it all to go after Hortland or whatever, and like just in search of a glorious death. And now he's found himself, you know, the Ashbourne, everything that represents. Maybe he is like trying to be like learning.
Yeah, and I think like we serve with people in the nation who are, you know, fantastic Briars, right? And I think that like militarily and in diplomacy and stuff, and I think you just got
to keep an eye on them. As soon as they start to act funny and go mental, that's when you put them down. Like anyway, right. So you entered your thing into the crafting competition?
Yeah. So then one thing I had done is I'd made a couple of kind of limited boxed editions of my book. I made basically 2 of these boxes.
You talked them down, but you made these boxes that the book fits in. They're absolutely glorious. They're ridiculously well crafted. They've got a little engraved plate on them.
Yeah, so I kind of I wanted to enter one into this crafting competition that Navarre run each year, and that was kind of I was. You know, it was exciting to sort of, as I say, do something that you've worked really hard on and enter it into this thing.
I was rooting for you so badly. Like, it
was cool, man.
Your shit's so good. It's great that you get to have something that you can be proud of and show off and kind of like see what else is out there, and also for other people to kind of
look at it. Right, I mean, that's one of the main things. It was just an opportunity for people to look at it and things like that, because it's kind of, I always get a bit kind of awkward when I'm kind of showing people things that I've made and stuff, you know. So it's actually quite nice to have kind of been able to give it out and just kind of have people appraise it.
You undersell, like, remember when we were talking about it, and you can talk to me about this where you're going through like, I rewrote this is how this works, this is a table of this that I've made, this is how this works, this is how it connects to this is, and you go through all of it and you're just like, holy shit, this is amazing. But it takes 5 minutes for you to go through every aspect of why that book is special. And I think the problem is that when you're trying to sell it to someone, as with anything, you want the immediate, right? And then, like, but trying to explain everything in a sales environment is difficult.
Well,
right?
I'm not a natural kind of salesman or anything at all, right? But so it was good. It was really good just to be able to put these boxes into the crafting competition. And ultimately, right? I didn't want to sell them for OC cash. I wanted to sell them for IC cash so we could achieve goals.
This reminds me. So someone Facebooked me and was like, I want to buy one of everything you've got because I post it all. I saw the lady, gave her some beef jerky because I was like, you want to buy everything? We'll come to a price that you'll be happy with. Tell you what, in the meantime, I had beef jerky on me. Take the beef jerky for free.
Right.
And then we come and get everything else for this price.
Yeah.
Never saw her again.
Oh.
I know. I thought she explained where she was from, and I was like, I'll find you. It's easy. And then never saw her again.
Oh, well.
No, it happens.
It happens.
It does happen. Right, let's talk about the telling. As we said before, this is a very centric us episode. Yeah. So, but let's talk about what is the telling, Ian.
So we have a sort of a tradition that we're trying to build up in the Ashbourne of basically when someone dies, that we have a process whereby anybody who wants to can stand up around the group fire and tell a story about the person who has entered the labyrinth. Yeah. And normally that sort of is led by me and you. Yeah. So we both spoke about Derry and Brakaz, who...
Well, we all stood up.
Yeah.
And we all stood around the fire.
Yeah.
And there was even just that mechanic by itself.
Drawing everyone together, and it's kind of like you all know that you're going to do this bit of RP together.
But when you start seeing people RPing, it inspires you.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Like people telling stories about. It was a really good experience. I don't know how you felt.
Well, no, so because one of the things I brought up at the meeting, one of the first things I brought up was the fact that we were only doing the telling the event after the death of these characters, and how I wanted us all to sort of think on it, that it had taken that long to do it. OC, and I think actually IC as well, we've actually sort of all decided that it's actually easier and better if we do it at the next event.
Yeah, the next event, definitely.
But I think, at the time it was an interesting kind of point to raise, and then you as the Ashkeeper took over and then explained that you IC'd out why that was a good way to go.
Yeah.
And we addressed that point, and then we kind of moved into telling the stories about Drakaz and Derry, who both died last season. The two brothers
that died, and it's like one of our Ashbourne things is like we'd say "burn bright" to each other constantly, like "burn bright, brother, burn bright."
Yeah.
The idea is that when you die, your virtuous actions during life make you literally burn bright in working.
So you'll illuminate a labyrinth as you go through.
So you are like, so the idea that, and we were talking about, like, so I was ending it with if you could like look above the labyrinth and look down on it, you would see one burning bright light, because it's not two brothers going separately, it's two brothers going together and helping each other down the labyrinth in this bright. And it was awesome. It was
cool, dude. It was really cool, and I think like for us, it was really good fun just to do a bit of intense RP together,
honouring our friends' characters, and like really getting into that, like. But also there was that element of like, we're the ones that are left now, right? Yeah. And it's about how we live our IC lives. Making it sound so ridiculous, but it was intense. Right?
And I think this idea of just like bringing some actual RP out of each other, and really trying to, and as I say, for other groups, it's not like massive shakes what we're doing, but for us, it's a big deal, you know. And I think like, it's been really good fun to just give it a go a lot more.
Oh, just it's also like it makes me learn my character better. It makes everyone else think about their characters better and the context of our interpersonal relationships. Like, so Lloyd actually, he disagreed with me. Like, he was talking to a person, I haven't exposed them directly, so I won't mention who they are, but about the decision that we had talked about not joining the banner. Right. And Lloyd was talking to me about how, well, are you sure that was the right decision to make, right? Yeah. So for the whole time that I was with Lanius? No, not Lanius. Lindir, sorry. Yeah. God, terrible. Lindir would be like, I'll just try and be like, these are the rules of Ifan or whatever. Bear in mind, I've saved his life a couple of times and always been there, you know. Yeah. Giving like, just trying to be like this kind of like, you may not always understand what I do, but you have to trust in what I do. You know what I mean? Like,
and it was interesting for me later, because later Linda approached me and basically expressed displeasure with the way that you had put your
ostracized him
upon him. Yeah, and it was kind of, that was really cool that we had that. You know, all of a sudden there was a bit of IC tension between the different
you gotta be like
groups. You know?
If fans like you gotta if you're not with me, then you're against me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You gotta be like that.
I have to get to it later, actually. But yeah, there was some interesting things like dealing with the difference of interpersonal dynamics between the group, just as RP.
All the stuff that we're talking about now, it's all into our striding, right? Yeah. But that's like it's a fun place to RP. So it also means that by just you RPing as a group, everyone you come into contact with can kind of join in on that buzz. You know?
And I think one thing for Lloyd that made it all really interesting is during the course of this whole event, he took on this idea of following the virtue of wisdom.
He read a pamphlet.
He read half a pamphlet, right? But it was a big one.
It was a big pamphlet. Yeah,
he read half of it, and this became the sort of the running joke that's like he'd start talking about wisdom. And Lloyd is actually like a really clever guy,
extremely intelligent,
and so he's like, and he's really good at sort of rational argument and so on. So he's a natural fit for it. But it was so funny to then take, you know, he's expressing all of these things, and he was making perfect arguments, and then I would just be able to turn around and say something.
He was talking to us about,
and then I could turn to you guys and say he read half a pamphlet.
Yeah.
And it was so good, because he's giving this amazing argument.
But he started doing that with other people.
Yeah.
Like, he would just start like, hey, have you heard of... And I would say, like, he's right. Like, it is an underappreciated fucking thing. And then someone said, what about like courage or whatever? You know, is it courage? Is that
courage is a virtue. Yeah.
They were like, well, without wisdom, courage is blah blah blah. And it's just like
he was doing all of these logical arguments.
It's like fucking so good. I really hope. I really hope he just shifts and goes full wisdom.
I think he will. I
really hope he does.
He bought, and I'll mention this now because I can't exactly remember when it happened, but there was this person who was walking around the Navarre camp selling pendants with different runes on.
Yeah.
And Linda bought the one for the rune of wisdom.
Yeah, he did.
And it was really cool because Lloyd hasn't really bought a lot of stuff, I see. So I think it was kind of cool. It's cool to part with coin, right?
Dude, those little hooks into your character as well.
Yeah.
Like, this is what my character wants.
Like that, and I think that's the thing. Like, that's winning the game, is like getting these things and adding to your character and expressing your character. Is just, RPing is winning the game in many ways. I mean, obviously it's different for everybody.
Yeah, but it is. I totally agree. RPing is winning the game. Like, you can be the richest person at Anvil and be fucking miserable with your weekend.
Well, I guess you could do. You could. I mean, the thing is, I think everybody is putting so much effort into having a great time.
I know that there's lots of different elements of the game, and maybe getting coin might be your thing, but there's a huge there's
lots of ways you can play the game.
Let's not get into emotional stuff. There's plenty of the weekend to go. Shall we?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk songs and stories and then out?
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe it's easier just to do all of Songs and Stories tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I agree.
Yeah, we'll do all of Songs and Stories tomorrow. It was just a fantastic event.
Okay, yeah.
Really good.
Right. That's Friday. We're going on to Big Saturday. Big fucking Saturday. Oh my goodness.
I'm excited.
Really excited. Yeah. Right, anyway, back in a minute. Right.
Bye.
My lord, here are the 2 you requested to see.
Derek, why are they in those sacks? Get them out immediately. They are honoured guests, not prisoners.
Oh, sorry, my lord.
Hello. I am so deeply sorry. This is not how I wanted from a first impression. What must you think? Please, take a seat. Can I offer you some refreshments, maybe? Holberg wine, or maybe a Karoff ale?
Yes.
My name is Lord Reinhardt. I believe we have a common interest.
Which is?
The Tower of Anok.